Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Township Mapleton Council meeting for Tuesday, December 12th, 2023, our last one of the year. And just before we get started, Mapleton is number 70 in Canada for best places to live. Imagine that. Best places to live in Canada, we're number 70. Number one was Victoria, British Columbia. I think 70, we're doing pretty darn good. Even though we're up against, we're 11,000 people and there are a lot more. Number 16 in Ontario. So that's something really good. Out of 444 municipalities in Ontario, we're number 16. So something to brag about here in Mapleton. And just so you know, when it comes to safety and security, number one in Canada is here in Mapleton, which is great. And kudos to all of our community for that. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and our first business is to rise, if you're able, for O Canada. A declaration of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. Confirmation of minutes. Moved by Councillor Tamblin, second by Councillor Ottens, that the minutes of the Township of Mapleton Council meeting held on November 28th, 2023 be confirmed as circulated in the agenda. Any questions or comments? All in favor? It's carried. We have no matters arising from the minutes, no matters under the Planning Act. Move down to item 7.1. Item 7.1 is the drain improvement. Resolution here is moved by Councillor Tamblin, seconded by Councillor Ottens, that Township Mapleton Council received for information engineer's report for the Brant A and D drain improvement 2023 as prepared by Trevor Cooper, PNG of R.J. Burnside and Associates Limited, dated November 2023, and that consideration be given to the first and second readings of a provisional bylaw to adopt the drainage report, and further that the clerk give notice to all affected landowners of the Court of Revision to be held January 16th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. in accordance with section 46(1) of the Drainage Act, subject to the adoption of the provisional bylaw. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome to everyone here for the drainage hearing. Through you to the members of council, this item 7.1 is listed as a delegation, but it isn't technically a delegation. It more closely resembles a planning hearing in that our engineers will give their presentation, and all landowners are afforded the ability to rebut or ask questions and have their say. If council was to pass the provisional bylaw tonight, Burnside would notify the landowners in 5 days. We would have 30 days to hold the Court of Revision, and that would put us on a deadline of January 16th, which happens to be our next council meeting. So I've taken the liberty of scheduling that January 16th at 6:30, but of course the mayor and council can change that if you want, but it cannot be later than that date. So thank you very much.
Okay, we have Trevor Dedden to speak.
Trevor and Jacob.
Thank you.
button. Yeah, there we go. That's working. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak here tonight. As you mentioned, my name is Trevor Kipfer, and with me tonight I have Jacob Rook. We're from RJ Burnside and Associates. We were appointed to investigate and propose improvements to the A and D branches of the Brant Municipal Drainage System to provide a drainage outlet and reduce flooding within the drainage area. So the A and D branches of this municipal drainage system are located generally north of Elma, near the intersection of Highway 6 and Side Road 21. They were both originally established in 1966 and together combined for an approximate 2.6 kilometers of tile drain and 1 kilometer of open drain. Together, the A and D drains service approximately 341 acres of land. So currently the existing systems are not adequately servicing the lands as a result of a number of factors. The existing tiles are undersized compared to current design standards. The existing tiles have shifted and partially collapsed in a number of locations. And the existing tiles have been affected by tree roots in a number of locations. It's causing repercussions on the surrounding lands. We had an initial on-site meeting in November of 2022, and a follow-up information meeting was held just in September of 2023. Many of the faces that I see in the room here, I recognize, as many of them were at those meetings. There are a few new faces. This is quite a large project that affects quite a number of properties. So considering the input from these meetings and follow-up discussions with the affected stakeholders, we've come up with our final proposed improvement, which is summarized in our engineer's report that all the impacted landowners have received. The proposed improvement is as follows. Approximately 1.5 kilometers of tile improvement, including upgrades to 1 municipal road crossing, the installation of 11 concrete structures, approximately 140 meters of channel improvements and other miscellaneous works. For total costs, we've estimated approximately $315,000 in construction costs. Property owner allowances, we've estimated at $56,000. Engineering costs, we've estimated at $106,000. Other costs such as net HST, contingency costs for the project, we've estimated as $43,000 for a total project cost of $520,000. As far as the assessments go, I guess with this being the consideration meeting, the primary focus would typically be the proposed works and designs, but for everyone's reference, the assessments for this project include about $406,000 assessed to private lands, $80,000 to municipal lands, and $34,000 to the Ministry of Transportation. And it's worth noting as well that we're anticipating about $107,000 in OMAFRA grant to go towards this project for agricultural properties. And that's all that I have to present at this time, but I would be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody from the audience wish to speak? Any questions from council? Okay, go ahead, sir. Please just stand up to the microphone so we can hear you.
I was just going to touch on a couple of things that maybe weren't clear, or maybe they were clear at the last meetings. And the engineers can correct me wherever I'm wrong, but I'm kind of the messenger here, is that I'm just saying the drain is broken. It was probably broken before, but it's brokener now. So this spring, for example, there was water coming up the 3 catch basins that join our property. Water's not supposed to come up catch basins. It was a pretty easy spring. Last major event we had was June 23rd, 2017. We had 5 to 6 inches of rain. We had 2 inches of rain in the previous 48 hours, and there was lakes and rivers everywhere, but it drained. And so it wouldn't at this point. And so the other thing too is on the drain. They're looking at not just 2 to 3 times bigger, but this isn't for the whole drain, but they're looking at like 7 to 8 times bigger. So it needs work.
Anybody else wish to speak? Council, any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll ask one more time. Anybody from the audience wish to speak to this? Go ahead, sir.
Just wondering, I didn't make the last meeting, but is that it for the engineer's report to comment on this package?
Jacob? Or Trevor, sorry?
As far as the proposed design work and the works that we're proposing, that would typically be what the main focus is of this meeting. If there are concerns with, say, something like assessments, there is that quarter revision meeting, which Larry summarized, where landowners certainly can ask questions. And I guess I just met, is Tom or Thomas?
Yeah.
Just prior to the meeting, perhaps, I know he hadn't been in any of the previous meetings, but perhaps we can maybe have a quick discussion after this and hopefully answer some of those questions if that would work.
Thank you.
So I ask again, anybody else wishing to speak at this point? Before council votes on this resolution. Council, I read the resolution prior to the clerk speaking. I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? None? That's carried. So that recommendation has been carried by council to move forward to the next phase. Item 7.2 is the Heritage Funeral Homes, Mary Thompson, to speak. You don't look like Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am here again. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor and council for allowing us to be here this evening. Just speaking on behalf of Heritage Funeral Homes. We're back here again representing our families of Mapleton. We don't want to take up too much of your time. The reason why we are here, if we could just rewind a little bit back to January of this year, when the fees and charges were set for the price of the columbarium niches in Drayton Cemetery at $1,500 for cost recovery. There hasn't been anything that has been changed with that. You know, the columbarium cost X amount of dollars. It was based off of cost recovery. So that's when council did take our considerations and set that price at $1,500. The bylaw that was passed for fees and charges going forward for next year. And when we did that proposal, we were under the understanding that it was going to be for the duration of the columbarium until it was full, and then revisit when the next columbarium was installed. So for going ahead to 2024, there was an increase of $60 per niche put in there to bring it up to $1,560. With regards to cost recovery, now $60, part of that has to go into care and maintenance. So you're not getting that whole $60 times 60 for the whole columbarium. But if you were to do an extra $50 on top of your cemetery opening and closing, okay, right now we're at $200. If we were to increase to $250, which basically is the same amount, you're getting that times 2 for each niche, which results in a $6,000 increase, okay? If you were to just do it at the $60 for 60 niches, that's only just over $3,000. By doing it, going ahead with increasing the opening and closing to be still comparable with our neighbors, it keeps the cost of the niches still at the same kind of cost as what our neighbors are in other cemeteries in the municipality. Again, it's more cost. You get more bang for your buck by doing the opening and closing. You can justify more opening and closing because cost of living has gone up, those kind of things. If you continue to try and just put the columbarium up for buying each niche, other cemeteries, they're not doing that. Bethesda has not done it. Dariad has not done it. Minto has not done it. They left them status quo. If they adjust anything, it's their cemetery opening and closing, which is the opening and closing in that niche. So as I said, you'd be increasing by $6,000 as opposed to $3,600, which part of that has to go into care and maintenance, which will get you under $3,000 that you can actually use today. Okay, so that's why we were wondering if it could be revisited in the fact of having an open discussion about, again, instead of that increase of the purchase price, I think it's more justified to increase your opening and closing, and then you can use all of that money right off the bat. Through you, Mayor Davidson, I would ask your permission to open up the presentation for discussion and feed it back maybe between council and Mapleton Senior Public Works Manager Jamie and ourselves, so we can get some answers to our questions of the fact of why you're choosing to increase $60 for the purchase price and maybe not looking at the opening and closing, where again, just in quick math, you're $3,000 ahead by doing the $50 opening and closing, which then after you're at the $250, you can then bring that up by the cost of living, which again, you can use that right away instead of having it going into the care and maintenance fund, which with the columbariums, they don't have the same kind of care and maintenance as what the regular graves do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any questions?
Thank you, Ken. Questions from members of council? I do thank you very much for bringing this presentation again and hearing it and giving the numbers. It's very important, and looking at the differences between the columbarium increase of cost of living and utilizing the opening and closing. Very important information to have. So I do appreciate that.
And again, if in speaking with Public Works, they certainly understood where we were coming from as well. I don't know if it's an opportunity that input from Mr. Morgan is appropriate or not at this time. Again, it's just trying to open that discussion up of, you know, I know that the cemetery does run at a deficit. So again, it's working together to try and figure out where the money can be used at this time, as opposed to 15 or 20% of it for care and maintenance and 40% for graves, going into that care and maintenance where you can only use the interest. So again, it's just trying to take that into consideration of trying to use that now as opposed to later.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Again, I'll ask council if they have any questions. Councilor Ottens?
Not really questions. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I appreciate a good logical argument, you know, with facts and figures that all line up. So if we were to revisit this, what is the process for this, given that we've already passed this fees and charges bylaw?
Right, so the process would be as our procedural bylaw. Under reconsideration, item number 33, after motion is passed or report adopted, no motion for reconsideration shall be considered unless it is moved and seconded by 2 members from those who were voted in majority. At that time when we were here, when we passed this, it was yourself, Councilor Reid, and myself that were here. So if you would like to put a motion on the floor to reopen it, you can do that because you were here. You were going to, okay, you want to, sorry, put on the mic there. Go ahead. Hit the mic again. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I will make a motion that we revisit this particular issue.
Okay. We have the only seconder would be Councilor Reid or myself.
I'd be happy to second that motion.
Okay. So a motion to reopen by yourself, seconded by Councilor Reid, that we reopen the fees and charges bylaw that was passed on October 24th, 2023. The clerk is just writing it down. Okay, so that is the motion that's on the floor. Mr. Clerk, just hang on a second.
You're right.
Yeah, so we're just going to, procedurally, we're going to start with the original motion. I haven't read it yet. I'm going to read the original motion and then we'll get to that one, Councillor Ottens. The original motion that we have here is item 7.2. Moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information the delegation of Heritage Funeral Homes regarding the request to council to reconsider the sale price of columbarium niches as per 2024-2026 fees and charges bylaw 2023-058 recently adopted. So let's vote on this one first, and then we'll go into your motion, okay? Any questions or comments on this motion? All in favor? This is carried. Okay, so now I'll go into the motion that moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Reed. That Township Mapleton Council reopened the fees and charges bylaw passed on October 24th, 2023. That is what we're discussing right now. So now it's open for discussion. So go ahead, Councillor Reed.
Through you, Mayor, maybe to, I'm not sure who has to answer it, but if we were looking at the suggestion made to put the fee increase on the opening and closings, what impact does that have for Public Works?
Mr. Morgan.
But as through you, Mayor Davison, we would have access to that money right away with the opening and closing. It would have a little bit of an impact into the future as we put money away. But as Public Works, we always like to have the money up front to cover the cost of living and stuff with the opening and closing. So the presentation definitely has merit in Public Works eyes. I'm not sure if the treasurer would like to speak, but yeah, it does have merit.
Mr. Morrison, do I get any comments?
Through you, your worship, yes, there's some merit in the presentation that's being presented. It's going forward in the long term that could be an at issue. Because the pricing of the original columbarium was designed to look at its entire life. And it is a structure. It will need work on it at some point. And as you sell it, it should be reflecting the actual dollars today that you would have received if it all been sold out in the current year. So it wasn't sold out last January. The $60 simply reflects the inflation rate in 1 year. And who knows what the rate of inflation will go forward. So if we don't recover enough funds moving forward, we have sufficient money when there's a crack in the foundation. We're going to have to maintain it at some point. But from the current year, doesn't really make a lot of difference if we just shift it between these two fees. But you're still having an issue where you really need to think about the long-term life cycle of that asset.
Mr. Morrison, cannot the opening and closing fees cover those costs that you're referring to?
Well, this year it would, so there's merit to it. But will it do that next year when you just increase a $250 fee is what was being suggested by 4% if it's 4%? When 4% is a much bigger number on the actual $1,500. So every year that we, as you go through this cycle, you're getting less and less money for the long-term upkeep of the asset. That's the principle that you're weighing off here.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Further questions, comments? Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Another question for the treasurer, director of finance. So the initial $1,500 price for the niche. What? Niche. Did that include, I'm assuming it wasn't just the total cost of the columbarium divided by 60 or whatever, right? We would have included some contribution to reserves kind of baked in with that in that price?
You're correct. Exactly. That's what happened.
But if you also remember, council, the last time, the number that Mr. Morrison presented was reduced by council. in January of this year as well. So that total cost might be different. Other questions, comments?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, how are the fees and charges bylaws, is it revisited every 4 years? Every new council gets?
Every year.
Every year? So, I mean, there's always the opportunity to if we find there's a problem, I mean, every year, right? You can always change this if we find there's some sort of major financial issue. But personally, I do agree with the presentation that maintenance on a columbarium is much less money than maintenance on an entire cemetery and doesn't require as much ongoing funds to keep it running. So I'd be inclined to go with the suggestion of presentation.
Other comments, suggestions? Councillor Reid.
Just looking at similar costs and thinking about this lately since it's come back to us once or twice. I also think that maybe for this 2024 term that we should be leaving it at 1,500 and maybe revisiting the opening closing costs.
Thank you. So right now we have a motion on the floor that was moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Reid, that we just reopen the fees and charges bylaw, which we've done. We're discussing it. If council wishes to make a change to the fees and charges, we'll need another motion to actually change it to the opening and closing costs instead of what the cost, what it currently is.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. So Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor Martin, has a motion that's now on the floor that Township of Mapleton Council change, amend the fees and charges bylaw for the columbarium niche, removing the cost of living increased on the columbarium niche. Is that correct? And increasing the opening and closing costs. About what you want to say?
Yeah.
Is that clear, Mr. Morrison, for you? Is that clear? Increasing.
The current charge on this area would be 210. So maximum would be up to 270, which I remember from presentations, it's still lower than some of their competitors that we've been compared with. Well, that would be recovering the entire $60 in the opening fee.
Yes, that would be fine.
Councilor Martin, you're okay with that?
In fairness, it'll affect the after hours or holiday fees too, right?
It would.
The clerk is just wordsmithing this here. And subsequent, yeah, right. Yes, please, Mr. Clerk is going to read it out.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, please let me know if I've written it down wrong. That Township of Mapleton Council amend the fees and charges bylaw for the columbarium niche, removing the increase of $60 and increasing the opening and closing price to $270 and subsequent after hours and holiday fees.
Does that work for council then?
Do we need to be specific right now on what those fees are, or are they just going to increase? Like you're saying, increasing the holiday fees. Right now, we're gonna be more than the holiday fees for the opening closing.
Mr. Morrison, what makes most sense to you, sir?
The after hours fees would then go to 310.
Council, that was just the add it to then to $310 for the after hour fee.
310 or 210?
310, because that's 270, that'll be 310 for after hours, right? Is that correct? 270 and then 310? Okay. I believe that gives enough. Are we just adding $60 to the after hours? Then it'd be 320. 270, is it $60 more than the 270?
And
Let's get this down here.
So we're, if you don't mind, through your worship.
Put it to the mic.
So we're increasing by $60, the opening and closing, correct? So that's 270. And if we take that same $60 and add it to the 260, it's 320. Yeah.
All right, so the opening and closing fees, 270 for regular hours, 320 after hours. Is council clear as mud now? Are we okay with that, Councillor Ottens and Councillor Martin? Are we okay with it now? Councillor Martin?
Yeah, I mean, essentially what we're doing is adding cost of living on opening and closing and holidays and weekends, and then adding another 60 on top of that. If we're using the 2024 prices and adding 60, that's what we're doing instead of maybe working off the 2023. It depends on how you're gonna look, how you want to slice it, right?
Whether you do it based on 2023 numbers or you do it based on the
Yeah.
2024.
So, I mean,
Excuse me.
it's $10.
Yeah, I think we're fine with that. Okay. Okay. Do we need to read it again? Or are we good? Read again. Okay. Good.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. That Township of Mapleton Council amend the fees and charges bylaw for the columbarium niche, removing the increase of $60 and increasing the opening and closing price to $270 and the after hours and holiday fee to $320.
All right. Any other questions for council members then from that? Then I'll call the vote on that one. All in favor? That's carried. Now we'll go back to the first one. We have to pass that one still. Sorry, that moved by Councilor Otten, second by Councilor Reed, the Township of Mapleton Council reopen the fees and charges bylaw passed October 24th, 2023. All in favor? Oh, yeah, only, yeah. No, we can all vote on that one. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Okay. Thank you both for coming. Thank everyone for their questions and comments. Mr. Morrison, Mr. Morgan, thank you. And we'll move on to item number 8. Moved by Counselor Otten, second by Counselor Tamlin, that Township Mapleton Council received for information the Parks and Recreation Committee minutes of October 12th, 2023, and that council consider any recommendations contained within the minutes. So we had the Parks and Recreation. Mr. Morgan, do you have any comments on that?
To you, Mayor Davison, no comments. It was a good meeting, very productive for the 50-50. So no comments on the actual content.
Council, if you notice in the package, there are 4. The committee supported 4 50-50 submissions. The Optimist Club of Moorfield. Optimist Club of Moorfield for $5,000. The Drayton Agricultural Society for $2,650. The Alma Community Recreation Association for $4,800. And the Rotary Club of Drayton for $5,000. That is what the committee has recommended to council to approve. Right now, the motion that's on the floor is that council consider any recommendations. Would someone like to move a motion to adjust this resolution to say approve those 4 recommendations? I'm open to hear it. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question and a comment. The Rotary Club of Drayton proposal actually is the only proposal that doesn't have any dollar figures attached to it, just that it's a contribution of $5,000. Do we know exactly, being that it's a 50-50, where the background number, sorry, I wasn't at that meeting, so I don't have the context for it. I was just curious if Jamie might have that.
Mr. Morgan, do you have that with you? I know it was a substantial amount they're still working on.
Through you, Mayor Davison, yeah, it was a fairly large amount. It's been an ongoing project through the new Rotary Park, at the end of Queen Street. So it's an ongoing addition to the park that was built there for the lookout. So it's just and I don't have the exact dollar figure. We really don't have exact because we're still researching in the minutes. I've been looking into researching how much money we can do there, and what we want to do there, if we can do it, and what design we want to look at. So that's what they're striving for. There was no dollar amount at this point because we have to come up with a concept. So we're researching that, but it was for the lookout.
But certainly going to be more than $10,000 when they're actually done it.
There'd be a lot more than 10,000. That's correct. Yeah.
Anything further? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I did note that there was some conversation about ice time at the PMD down in the bottom and the updates from staff. I don't know if this is a question or a comment, to be honest. I do know that that arena is at capacity this year as far as user groups and the ice time that's available. Drayton Minor Hockey has been purchasing ice elsewhere. I think the average ice time per kid is down 35 minutes a week, which is not insignificant. It's through a couple different factors. We have increased registration this year, a couple extra teams. And I do know that it may change a little bit in the new year with the Allure Arena going back online again. But I'm just wondering if there are opportunities, maybe for next year, to selfishly make sure that our local user groups get priority on ice time before we entertain minor hockey associations from out of town. Is that something we could look at or have a pecking order? Or I know everybody's trying to play, and that and the sidebar is, I know there's, we've had conversations about, well, there's local players that play in the Center Wellington organization that's up here too. So I mean, there's a degree of fairness that you could attach to that argument, but we also have a bunch of kids, my kid included, that play in Elmira, and that association doesn't come up here and use our ice time either. So I was just wondering if we'd have strategies maybe for next year. It's tough to do it now, that we could maybe look at how we divvy out the ice time.
Mr. Morgan?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Davison, that exact conversation come up at the Parks and Rec Committee meeting. So staff is currently looking at a policy and putting together a policy on how ice is allocated at the PMD. So we're definitely working at creating a policy for Drayton on what we do, and we've been gathering policies from neighboring communities to make sure that we're kind of in line with how everybody else in the ice is allocated to the local user groups.
I think 6 a.m. ice time is still available, isn't it?
We have lots of non-prime time ice available if somebody's looking for
So
some.
there is ice time available, just not at the right time that people actually want to use it. All right, thank you. Other questions then? Like I said, we do have that motion. Do have a motion here that council consider any recommendations contained within the minutes. There's a recommendation that's in the minutes of the 50-50. I need someone from council to move.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion to support the 4 recommendations that are included in the Parks and Rec meeting.
And council support.
Is there 5?
There are 4. The fifth one being the first one was something that's being sent to the Drayton Youth one. That's going to CIP instead. Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Reid.
In that first one, though, it also says that if CIP doesn't support it, that they will. So would that come up again through this process?
It'll come back.
Okay.
To the Parks and Rec Committee, yes. Then come back to council. Correct. At this point in time, there's just the 4 there, the Optimist Club in Moorfield, the Drayton Agricultural Society, Alma Community Recreation Association, and the Drayton Rotary Club. Okay, so it says currently now, and that council consider any recommendations contained within the minutes, and further that council supports the 4 recommendations contained within. That's amended by Councillor Martin. I need a seconder for the amendment, please. Councillor Ottens, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Then all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on next to item 9.1 from the building department. Moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin, that Township of Mapleton Council received Building Department Report BD 2023-12 dated October 12th, 2023 regarding November month end and year to date. Any questions or comments? This is the first report that our friend here put out. Do you have anything to add to this beautiful report you did?
To you, Mayor Davidson. Is definitely my first month report that I generated, and our numbers is at the end of the year, so that's coming down, but do expect them to pick back up in the new year.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions from council? Letting them off easy. All right. All in favor? That's carried. I had to get you to talk. Moving on to the next item then. Planning. Moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin. Bear with me, it's a little longer. The Township Mapleton Council Support Consent Application B1623 as presented on lands described as Part Lot 20, Concession 16, municipally known as 7226 Blind Line with the following conditions. That the owner satisfy all the requirements of the local municipality, financial and otherwise, for the proper and orderly development of the subject lands, including but not limited to outstanding taxes, that a payment be made of a fee of $355 for a letter of clearance, and that a copy of the deposit reference plan be submitted to the township And further that council authorizes the planning and development manager to file with the secretary treasurer of the Planning and Land Division Committee at the County of Wellington, a letter of clearance of these conditions on completion of the same. Questions from council? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This property seems vaguely familiar. For the planner, I don't see a rationale or a purpose for this lot line adjustment baked into the report outside of an expansion for a garden. So I guess A, would you have that? And B, would this lot line adjustment in any way come back around to us again in 3-4 months in relation to the earlier application that council defeated?
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Through you, Mayor Davidson. Yes, this is exactly the same application that's been before you. I believe this is the 4th time now. Both, so the lot line adjustment and then the severance, the larger parcel has been removed and they maintained and resubmitted it. The smaller parcel was always there. It was always going to be the 2, but because of council's previous decision and not to allow the zoning to go forward, and which means they cannot expand the business that way, the purpose for them to continue to have that, perhaps to create another entrance, I really don't know. But because the previous report had everything else from the original request, it actually, you're slightly misled, it was not taken to Land Division Committee. So we were asked to bring it back to council with the revised proposal so that council, we could have new clearance decisions on it, because the Land Division wouldn't have any idea what we were talking about or why it was in there. They've never seen the original proposal, so that's why it's coming back. You already approved it the original time with both in there, so we're putting forward that the recommendation is that council is still satisfied knowing that it is only the smaller portion going forward on this lot line adjustment.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Proposed consent meets the policies of the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, and the zoning bylaw, and staff have no planning concerns as noted in our report. Any other questions or comments? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Next one is moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Reed. Township of Mapleton Council received a finance report 2023-626 regarding RLB LLP Chartered Accountants Audit Engagement Letter as information, and that as per the Municipal Act 2001, Council of the Township of Mapleton shall hereby appoint RLB LLP Chartered Accountants as its auditor, who shall report to the council of the municipality for a term not exceeding 5 years, who is responsible for annually auditing the accounts and transactions of the municipality and its local boards and expressing an opinion on the financial statements of these bodies based on the audit, and B, performing duties required by the municipality or local board. And further that the reports of the auditor provided to council are public records and may be inspected by any person at the clerk's office. Questions or comments on this? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Next item up is 9.4.1. This is moved by Councillor Reed, second by Councillor Martin, that Township of Mapleton Council received information Public Works Report PW 2023-17 dated December 12th, 2023 regarding current public works projects. Mr. Morgan, anything comments on that?
Through your Mayor Davison, just a report to bring council up to speed on some of our very large projects that we're undertaking right now with the Moorfield water system renewal. The well's done December 11th, so it went very, very well. Drayton Pump House is moving along quite well. Emails every day on that, and just to make council aware that we are moving forward fairly quickly. Never as really as quick as you want, but I'm very impressed on how we've been progressing with our engineering firm with the approval agencies. So that just an FYI that we are moving, so.
It's good to hear, Mr. Morgan. Thank you. Questions, comments from council? I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Moving on to the next item, item 9.4.2, moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reed. Township Maplewood Council received Public Works Report PW 2023-16 dated December 12th, 2023 regarding the 2023 Public Works Capital Project third quarter for information. Mr. Morgan, anything else?
Just a couple things through you, Mayor Davison. The structure on the 6th line the road should be open here right shortly. They're doing the guide rail today. There's a little bit of cleanup and paving that needs to be tidied up next year. Getting late in the season, but it will be reopened right shortly. And I should have the summary report, part of the summary report for the roads needs and conditions study before Christmas to start the review. So there were a couple that are in progress, but moving along quite nicely. And yeah, we've completed almost all of our projects for 2023.
Questions, for Mr. Morgan? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. Next item, 10.1, moved by Councillor Reed, second by Councillor Martin. That bylaw number 2023-064 being a provisional bylaw to authorize the improvement of the Brant A and D drains be hereby ready first, second time, signed by the mayor and clerk and passed this Tuesday, the 12th of December, 2023. Any further comments or questions on this? All in favor? It's carried. Go down to item number 12. There's correspondence for council information. Councillor Reed.
In regards to the correspondence 12.3 through you, Mayor, I'd like to support to revoke strong mayor powers that they have sent in their letter from the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus.
Councillor Reed would like to support, I guess you want
I'd like a motion to support.
a motion to support to have a letter written. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Reed has put a motion to have a letter written in support of item 12.3. Need a seconder, please? Councillor Ottens. Any discussion? Yeah, are you looking for both items on there? Because it's the strong mayor powers and the increased leave to construct threshold.
At this point, I was only looking for the first portion, support to revoke the strong mayor powers.
Any comments on that? Is council looking at both or one? Just one? Okay. Moved by Councillor Reed, second by Councillor Ottens. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Anything further on those? Okay. Any notices of motion? Moving on to item 15, other business. Anything? I'd like to welcome back our friend here, Mr. Tamlin. It's nice to have you back, sir, in person. And it is near the end of the year and Christmas time, Hanukkah, many other holidays, New Year's. Lots coming up. I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, Happy Hanukkah for those. I don't know, is any Dutch holidays right now too? What do the Dutch call this? You see, Christmas or something else? It's okay. Say that again on the mic. It's called?
It's called Sinterklaas.
Okay,
And
Santa
it's at
Claus.
the beginning of Christmas. It's when Saint Nicholas comes to the house and puts treats in your wooden shoes.
I need to put a wooden shoe out. I want treats. Perfect. Anything else for other business? And Alma, you want to mention that? Go ahead.
We have the Alma Breakfast with Santa from 8:30 to 10:30 on Sunday, followed by the parade at 2 p.m.
Excellent. Thank you. And who's going to be in the parade besides myself? Okay. Marlene, you're going to be there and not there, not this year? Okay. You're bringing your kids? Okay, perfect. Anything else for other business? All right. We'll move into a closed session then. Moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reed, the Township Mapleton Council move into a closed session to consider the following subject matters. Review